welcome to another edition of Decision 2026. I am Mamadou Mbouch. Last Thursday, we asked a straightforward but important question. How well has the NPP government managed the economy? We had a lively discussion, but there was one obvious elephant-sized gap. The ruling NPP representative wasn't in the room. So last week we asked the question. Today we've got the NPP here to answer it. But this episode shouldn't feel like a repeat. Let's say it's an encore with a purpose. As usual, I'm joined by my panel of information crunchers. I'll call them. Some people crunch numbers, others crunch information. I've got on my immediate left Aliou Cissé. We all know him from State of Affairs and news reporter and the like. And on his left is Ibrahim Adabo. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbouch. Once again, it's a pleasure to be back on the program, and we're looking forward to another exciting and insightful conversation. Thank you.
All right. Now, absolutely, yeah.
Pleasure.
Good. So, we are ready. Now, joining us today on my immediate right is the NPP representative, Abubakar Kale. Welcome to the program,
Thank
Abubakar.
you. Thank you.
Good. And on his right, we've got, well, he doesn't need any introduction, does he, really? Sid Matijao, political scientist and executive director of the Center for Research and Policy Development. Gentlemen, all welcome to the program. So, where do we begin? This week we'll do it slightly differently. Before we grade the government, really, we have to agree on the exam. Prof, Doctor, you can come in here. I wonder, I mean, you know, you study public perception for a living, isn't it? That sort of thing.
Oh, yes, that's my...
When an ordinary Gambian says the economy is bad, what they actually measuring? It's really GDP growth, is it?
I mean, thank you. I mean, usually the, you know, for people, I always say is their pocket. I mean, the size of their pocket, if I may use that. You know, the cost of living, for instance, how are they able to buy bread if they want to buy bread, take their kids to school if they want to take their kids to school. So the everyday issues that, you know, that deals with their own living conditions, people are usually more focused on those issues. Because, of course, for Afrobarometer, for instance, we asked about both personal living conditions and the national living conditions as well, so that we can see the perceptions about the national, but also more directly in terms of their perception. So it's about their everyday issues, yeah, in a nutshell.
That's mainly the cost of living.
Yeah, the cost of living. Yeah.
Before we come to Mr. Kale, let me go to my panelists. If we're going to judge, really, the performance of the government economically, surely we must have our criteria. What would be the standards? What would be the test before we test the government on that?
For me, you asked me I'm going to judge the government based on the realities on the ground, what the ordinary Gambian out there in my village feels about the economy. Yes, I mean, you will say, yeah, on paper you have the IMF, the World Bank will tell you the Gambian economy is doing well, the GDP is well, 6% and all that. But I mean, when you get to the grassroots, I mean, for someone who's in the village, the person might not be really interested about the GDP whatsoever. What the person knows is how much am I going to spend to get a bag of rice? I mean, how much am I going to spend to travel from point A to point B? So those are the basic things that, I mean, for someone in the village will use to judge, I mean, the government. So for me, yes, I'm going to base the government performance of the economy based on what we feel as ordinary Gambians, not just what the World Bank or the IMF is telling me about GDP and all that.
Mr. Davo.
Yeah, I think for me, I will assess them on what kind of policies and programs did the government bring and how those policies and programs directly impact the life of ordinary citizens, like Ali was saying. So if, for example, there is a poverty alleviation program, you know, how well did the government implement that program and how did it impact the lives of ordinary Gambians? if there is a particular program or policy that is meant to reduce prices, or probably a subsidy, from the government, how did that impact, for an ordinary farmer in the Gambia, or how does it affect fuel prices or prices of commodities in the Gambia? So that is how I'm going to assess them. And I think there is a lot of work that we need to do.
Yes?
Yes.
Mr. Kale, now we come to you. We've set the test, as it were, for you. The standard, the criteria.
Yeah, thank
now,
you. Thank
so
you.
what do you say about the
Thank you,
KPIs
thank
of
you.
an economy?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mboj, for having me. And I want to thank all the spectators or the audience watching us tonight. I'm not an economist, but my father is an eminent economist, so I can borrow a few things from him. Like Mr. Cisse said, well, you cannot just say the GDP is growing, even though the GDP, but it's a good barometer for what is going on the ground, because the economy cannot be growing and people are not impacting. If you look at last year in 2025, the economy grew by a whopping 6%. And despite the war in Ukraine, because the problem with us is we don't grow what we eat. This is a big problem. And most of the things are being imported in. And if you rely on outside forces, let's take it for a human being. If you rely entirely, your livelihood is dependent on somebody else, there is no reliability there. So if you look at the per capita growth, that's about 3.6%. It's a little bit, this is a barometer where you can, the economy grew by about 6%, but in 2026 it's expected to grow by 5%. This is largely due to what is going on around the world. We all know what is responsible for that. Higher fuel cost because of the war in Iran. So this is, the government is doing everything it can to subsidize. You see that they have subsidized fuel, they have subsidized fertilizer, but as we go on, we can break it down to certain sectors of the economy, and then we go by that, because there is a huge growth rate in terms of different sectors of the economy, in terms of agriculture, in terms of across the board in the productive sector of the economy, there is a growth, significant growth.
That's it.
So,
But some
yeah.
people will tell you that, yes, you have that headline growth, but people do not feel it in their pockets.
Well, I can tell you, the problem here is we don't have measurability. We don't have, like Mr. Said, there has to be a reliable way to measure these things. If you go to certain countries, developed countries, they have a system whereby they go and ask people about their pocketbooks. The price, index will be up and down. But if you look at it properly, the basic commodities have come down. They came down significantly. If you look at a few years ago, the price of rice was topping $2,000, and now it's about $1,600. So, and this is the basic commodity for Gambia. If you look at the price of sugar, it came down. You go across the board. But I think what the government is doing is very important. First we have to look at agriculture. We have to look at, how we get what we need. The basic needs have to be, we have to take care of. And if you look at the agriculture program, the different rice value chain, you have giraffe, you also have roots. If you look at what they are investing in agriculture, most of this funding is from outside, but, it's as good as the capacity we have. Because the problem, I'm a farmer, the problem we have in farming is nobody wants to get into farming. It's not because there is no money, but the capacity is not there for employment to get people to farm. Even people who trained in agriculture don't want to get into the farm. We have to change the mindset a little bit. And I think, that is from the grassroots. We have to, as Gambians, you don't rely on only the government to do that. The private sector have to come in, and we try to Go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
That's fine. I was just waiting for you to land.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break because we are joined by Mamadou Kurang of UDP. It's just about to get started. We'll be right back shortly.
Speed matters, but slow internet can hold you back. Now, the future of connectivity has arrived in the Gambia. QCell's Q-Fiber, ultra-fast, ultra-reliable internet designed for the way you live. Stream your favorite shows without buffering. Power your business with seamless video calls. Study, work, and play online like never before. From homes to businesses, QCell Fiber is connecting the Gambia to the future. QCell's Q-Fiber. Get connected today. Call 145 or 300-3779. QCell. We innovate, others follow.
Welcome to the QCell 5G Gaming Hub, powered by ultra-fast 5G connectivity from QCell, the fastest network in the Gambia. No lag, no limits, just pure performance. Multiple PlayStations, Xbox racing with full car wheel control, and immersive virtual reality experiences that put you inside the action. Play the biggest titles: FIFA, Call of Duty, NBA 2K, Street Fighter 6, Forza, and many more. Experience gaming like never before. The QCell 5G Gaming Center is open weekdays from 12 p.m. and weekends from 11 a.m. Closed Tuesdays. For bookings and inquiries, call 381-0008. The QCell 5G Gaming Hub. Not just gaming. This is the ultimate gaming experience.
In December 2026, Gambians head to the polls to choose a president, and history may hang in the balance. As the day draws near, every week, right up to Decision Day, QTV will lead the political conversation. And nobody breaks it down like QTV. Our team of experts will help you understand the results as QTV brings you Decision 2026. A weekly program dissecting the issues, driving the debate, and giving Gambians a front row seat to the hottest topics for the defining election of our time. Hear differing views, put forward and challenged, manifestos dissected and explained. Stay informed, stay engaged. Stay tuned to QTV for everything you need to know about this year's election. Decision 2026, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Only on QTV.
Customer, Ado. How you dey do?
For sure. How you do, sir?
Fine. How business?
Business fine, no?
Give me 5 of this, yeah?
Okay, sir, no problem. I'll go put it for you.
How you do, bruh? Sir.
Welcome back to Decision 2026. Now, we've been joined here by a person who's no stranger really to the platform. He was here last week and is back to make the case for the alternative. UDP's Mamadou Kurang, chartered accountant, educator, and one-time executive secretary of the Ghana Commission. Welcome to the program. You're sitting between Abubakar Kale and Said Matijao.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So before you came, we said, well, it's the same question really. How well has the government been managing our economy? Then we decided this week, okay, if we're going to give you a test, you must have a criteria, as it were. Under what basis are we going to make that judgment? We've mentioned the cost of living and all this stuff. So we had actually moved on the growth of the economy by 6% last week. I suppose that's last year. I suppose that's a feather in the cap of NPP, wouldn't you say?
No, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say that.
All right. So you tell us.
I wouldn't say that. Thank you very much. Because why I wouldn't say and I wouldn't agree with a feather in the cap of the NPP is simply there is this thing that we can refer to as either as the growth illusion. I don't know if it's a growth illusion or some kind of a mathematical illusion, in the sense that you can have growth, but if you really look behind the numbers and then you begin to question the growth, you tend to see something that is not really impressive for a few reasons. And we would say the first reason is that the statistics is the statistics. And we like to say, well, we don't eat the statistics. Now, when we say that, we said when you have growth, the growth is supposed to go with certain things. For example, do we have food security? We don't have food security, 1. 2, how balanced is the growth? How balanced is the growth? We have an economy in which 60% of the workforce is in farming. That is highly underemployed. There is underemployment in the farming industry. So that tells you that they're not really sharing much of this cake that we call growth. Now, the growth is coming from, let's say, the service industry. I mean, you have it's supposed to be tourism, and then there is supposed to be telecommunication, banking, and all this. But when we look at those service industries, do they actually, the benefits of growth in the service industry, does it actually go back to the common man? Does it trickle down to the common man? Now, why I call it a mathematical illusion, because you can have 7%, you can have, even a double-digit growth, but where you have 60% of your workforce in farming, and farming is not growing. We know, last week we talked about the disappointment that the farmers are already facing in the peanut industry. And, now that the growth is concentrated, for example, you take the service industry, you go to tourism or banking, and then you ask yourself, who are the capital owners? Where does the profit go in banking? And where does the profit go, for example, in tourism? Then you begin to find out that a large percentage of the tourist capital is foreign owned. So if there is a growth in that industry, we know about the politics of, how do they call it again, all-inclusive and not all-inclusive. That's a different debate. But what I'm talking in terms that when the capital of a sector is largely foreign owned, the benefits of growth in that industry does not necessarily trickle down to the common man. If you go to the tourist industry, you ask the juice seller, then you ask the people who sell the peanut, then you ask the craft market. And then you begin...
That's an interesting idea, Mr. Kurang.
Yeah.
You call it growth illusion.
A mathematical illusion or a statistical illusion.
Illusion.
Yeah.
So you mean that it is completely irrelevant? I mean, because without the statistical data, we need the data to paint a picture for us of what is going on.
Yeah.
So without the statistical data, we really do not know. I mean, the other areas you've mentioned, there might be problems in them, but that doesn't invalidate the 6% growth.
No, it doesn't invalidate the fact that you have 6%, but that 6% you must ask the people of the country. How do you feel in your pocket? Do you feel better 5 years ago compared to now? That's 1. 2, if you have 6% growth, and as they calculate it, they statistically calculate it in a certain way, and then you go back and check and ask yourself, how much is the population growth? Then you realize that even the IMF and the World Bank admitted it in their statistics, that the Gambia's real growth is suffering, right, for the next 3 years or so, is going to suffer by a decrease of 1.something% out of the real growth, simply because the population growth is outstripping the real growth in the economy. So you have 7%, you can have 7%, and then you take the consideration the growth of the economy. I already mentioned to you the problems of the skewedness of the distribution, in the sense that most of the benefits of the growth can go to the capital owners. Now I'm pointing to you another factor, while I call it a statistical illusion or a mathematical illusion, that you give 7%, but if you factor in the population growth, the real benefit of the growth begins to diminish. So these are the problems. I'm not denying that there is statistics, but I'm just telling you the fallacy of the statistics.
You've made your point.
Yeah.
Mr. Kale, just before the break, you were talking about the investment in agriculture. Now, what has he said? Farming is not growing.
Food security.
I think the illusion he's talking about remains only with Mr. Kurang. You know, he's because, you know, if you look at how do you measure something, you cannot say it's nothing. You cannot say GDP growth is nothing. It's a standard way of measuring any economy around the world. You cannot discount that.
Yeah.
And then the problem with us is, you know, if you go to certain countries, they have what they call CPI, you know, Consumer Price Index, where they measure these things. But some of these things we don't have. But I'm a common man. I live in Badibu. I have a farm there. I employ people. I can tell you, I've been living here for almost 7 years. There is a significant improvement in terms of people's standard of living, in terms of price on commodities, because the problem is we have to be able to work. The government cannot do everything for us. The private sector that you are talking about, Gambia is a small country. We have to open ourselves to investment coming in. But the most important thing in all this is the stability the president is providing. The stability that the NPP government is providing for the country. That is the basis for any economic growth. If it is something, it's the foundation where we build on. And if you look at the government itself, the 3 branches of government, you cannot say that there is no stability in this country. All these branches are independently working successfully. When the president can go to court and the court can reject, you know, and rebuke the government and nothing happens. You ask Barrow, what you ask Barrow to give you, that's what he's giving you. Democracy. Democracy.
Economics?
Economics is all the same.
Okay.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same. There cannot be any economic growth when there is no stability.
Yeah.
You know, I'm giving you the basic economic principle, my friend.
Okay.
So this is the most important thing. There is growth. You have to be able to, if we don't have the right barometer to measure these things, you cannot sit here and discount statistics. Because there is no statistics.
Well, you know what the World Bank says?
Allow me.
The World Bank says
yes.
that in the months between July and September,
Yeah.
it's called the lean months.
Yeah.
20 to 30% of the farmers of the country are facing food insecurity. So, I mean, yeah, I accept the fact that you have to be a stable economy in Gambia. That's why we have a democracy, and we are all participants and contributors to the democracy.
Would you give the government credit for that?
No, I give credit to the opposition as well as the government. You know, I give credit to everybody.
It takes 2 to tango.
Exactly. I believe in democracy, and I participate in democracy. My party believes in democracy. We participate in democracy. In fact, we brought in significantly contributed to the democracy that we are enjoying now. But I'm saying, right, all things remaining constant. We're now talking about the stomach of the people, the pockets of the farmers. And what the World Bank is saying is that because of the lack of significant investment in agriculture, it's still lacking. You know, you cannot just say, oh, we have invested 10 million there and 20 million there. No, we're looking at your total commitment. And here, there's a problem. The technical problem why the government of the Gambia, of the Barrow, is not able to give the growth that it is promising the farmers. One of the key reasons is because they're simply borrowing too much. And when you borrow too much, there's resources that we are supposed to invest in agriculture, healthcare, and education are going on to pay for interest rates. 30% of the money we make every year goes to pay interest. That money could have been invested. So you see, I am not saying that there is no stability. Yeah, I believe that Gambia's democracy is there, but all things remaining constant, that factor remaining constant, do we have growth that the people, the common man on the street can be actually proud of?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Said Mati, before you come in, I'll come to you guys, but I would just want you to just tell me something. You talked about the improvement in standards of living.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
yeah.
What measure? How did you measure that?
This is measured, you can tell, like from the price of goods. Price of goods.
So you mean the price of goods are coming down?
Price of goods are coming down significantly. For example, I gave you an example here. I said price of rice, which is a basic commodity, is the basic
from what
commodity.
period to what period? From when Barrow came and today?
Yes, from 2 years ago.
No, it's,
Listen
you
to me,
start
listen.
from Barrow's start of Barrow's term
Yes.
when Barrow came to power. And today, what was the price of rice?
Let me tell you one
Yes.
thing, Mr. Koran. Prices go up naturally.
Yes.
But if they come down, we give credit.
Yeah.
Last 2 years, price of rice was about plus 2,000. And now it's 1,600. Price of oil, price of onion, price of potatoes.
They're all
The
coming
basic commodity, this is the basic measure
Price of rent?
of, price.
We'll come, no, forget housing for now.
Price
We'll,
of- price
we'll
of-
deal with
price
that.
of-
We'll deal with that.
price of
We'll deal with
gas,
absolutely
gas,
stuff like
But
that.
that's well, it's beyond our control. Come on. Price of, if you look at the sub-region, if you look at what subvention the government is doing in terms of price of fuel, it's significant. If you look at the subvention they are doing with the price of fertilizer, it's significant. Fertilizer across the pond here in Senegal is about plus $2,000. In Gambia, you know how much it is? 1,150, 1,100. So you can tell. I know these things better than Mr. Kura.
You've made your point.
I'm on the ground, and it's not.
You've made your point. Panelists come in before we get the political scientists. So,
I think for me, it's just to pick up where Mr. Khaled just stopped talking about the issue of fertilizer. Earlier on, I had Mr. Kron talk about the issue of food security and all that. But for me, if you ask me, I will tell you, we live in a country where we have everything available. We have the land. We are fortunate enough to have rain at all times. For me, in a country like the Gambia, we don't necessarily need to wait for government to invest millions or to have private sector coming in to invest in agriculture. Just provide the farmers with what they need, the basic things that will inspire them to go into agriculture. Because growing up back in my village, we hardly buy rice. People were inspired to go back to rice fields. But that's not the case now. Maybe only in Nyamina now, where people are still, depending highly on locally produced, rice. Because if not, a country like the Gambia, why do we have to invest or spend like $80 million annually just to import rice into a country like the Gambia?
60% of the rice we consume, or above 60%.
Exactly.
Or 60 to 70% of the rice that we consume in this country still is imported. You listened to the statistics last time. The production have gone down so drastically. So I think Mr. Cisse is very right. If you want to take, because food security, any government, the number one factor, even an advanced country like America or the poorest country, your number one priority is to feed people to their field. I think food security, therefore, is critical. So if we eat rice, we don't need the statistics. That's why I said it's a mathematical illusion, because we don't eat the statistics. We eat rice.
No, we digest the statistics.
We digest. So if the rice we eat, 60% or above 60 to 70% comes from abroad. And we have fertile land all over. We have water all over. So we have the basic natural environment to produce more rice. And where is the investment going?
Okay, Mr. Davo?
Yeah. So I want to say, first, there is one fact we all have to establish. That before we reach at this level, we used to feed ourselves. Back in the days, in the early 60s to 70s, because subsistence agriculture is something that was very famous in the Gambia.
In the early 90s.
Yes, and then wherever you go across the Gambia, people live through subsistence farming. And now that we are saying that we're importing 60% of the rice that we consume, so that's where I said in the beginning that for me, I'm going to assess the government on what kind of economic policies and programs do they create to ensure that the standard of living of Gambians is uplifted. And that brings me to what he's saying, that the standard of living is improving. Now, I have a very big problem with that. When you say the standard of living is improving, the reason is, there is something in the Gambia we call IHS. I don't know whether you once read it before. The GBOS does a survey called the Integrated Household Survey. Now, the last Integrated Household Survey in the Gambia shows that the number of people, the percentage of people living in absolute poverty increases from 48 to 52%. And that means more than 148,000 Gambians live in absolute poverty. Okay, and that's an increase, over 5% increase from the previous IHS that was published by GBOS. So if you say the standard of living is improving, and the statistics is saying that in fact there are more Gambians that are living in absolute poverty now than in 2016, that's where my trouble is.
I don't know what you are getting your statistics
just
from.
give me
But
some, just hold that thought. Hold that thought. Said Mati, we were talking about 6% growth in GDP. Does that sort of thing show up in mood data, as it were? So is there a disconnect between the macro picture and what people are feeling at that micro level? How do you see it politically?
I mean, usually people are able to separate, you know, at the macro level, and the macro level mostly is more around their perception of what they think about. You know, Mr. Mbow is richer than myself, so you know he might be living in a better life. But others is also about their own personal living conditions, you know. And sometimes, you know, when we are talking about live poverty, because also we do measure issues around live poverty, and I think that was also very interesting. That for us in terms of Afrobarometer from 2018 to 2021, we saw that there was a you know, the people that live in under live poverty basically doubled. And when we talk about live poverty, this basically doubled by 2021. That was 24% in 2018, which was the baseline, and this doubled to 52% in 2021. But by 2023, it started going down, and by 2024, which is the last year of the data, is to 35%. And then for me, the question is not what they're discussing about. Is, you know, there are periods within the society where things are happening, things are changing. He's talking about the IHS data, but Gambian society itself is changing. I mean, Aliu is talking about farming. He's talking about 60% farming, but before it was 90%. But each time it is going down. Why? Where are the people going? They are getting into services. Aliu came from a farming community, but now he's He's into the service industry. So we should, when we are discussing, we should also look at how society is also evolving, is also changing, and we shouldn't just look at it as a stagnant issue. And as we discuss in this whole economic, you know, conversation, I mean, of course, I'm not an economist, but these are also issues that are very, very real and also
before
very.
you come in there, but what you measure is really perception. How do you see the relationship between perception and reality? Because they do not always sort of chime in, if you like. They do not always align. And so how do you see that?
Yeah, but we also say that perception is also, you know, live reality, sort of. I mean, your perception comes from your environment.
Absolutely.
How you see things, how you understand the...
You could be mistaken.
Of course, you can be mistaken, but it also depends. You know, last time this is what we were talking about, the bounded rationality.
Yes, absolutely.
From that, the extent to which how much information you have can influence your perception. But of course, we don't only measure perception. We also measure behavior. And that's why we're talking about live poverty. And live poverty, this is measured in terms of what wealth, Kurang, for instance, whether he has telephone, has all of those things. These are all grouped, and then it is measured. And people can be ranked based on those that are richer, poorer, and all of those things. So that is not like a perception. You ask person whether do you have a mobile phone, they say yes. Or all of those things, they say yes. And that's what the live poverty.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Kale, you've got your work cut out for you. Now you've got a lot to answer.
Yeah, my problem with Mr. Kura is, you know, these people keep talking about problems. What do you come here as a solution to agriculture is my problem. Because if you look at all the critical sectors, they've all been going up. And I will tell my friend, Mr. Dabo, you know, maybe in Kiang you are doing subsistence agriculture, but that is becoming the thing of the past. We are talking about wooing in more investors to come and invest in agriculture. This is the only way we can. If you try something for 50 years, 60 years, it doesn't work for you. You have to start thinking about changing it. And this is what this government is starting to look at. You know, if you look at all the sectors, they've been growing. You know, you talk about, I can give you something here, right here. If you look at agriculture and forestry, 5.1%, industry, 6%, construction 4.7%, services 6.2%, tourism and accommodation 8.1%, transportation 8.7%, information and communication.
For
we
which
are
period?
laying
For which period?
for 2025.
From which period to which period?
For the whole year, you know. let me tell you this. We are looking at what this government is doing is laying out the foundation for growth. This is why we are going into infrastructure and all sectors of infrastructure in terms of when we build roads, you said, oh, we don't eat roads. But, you know, roads are critical part of economic growth. Because as a farmer in the rural area, if I don't have a way of having access to the market, it's a big deal for me. You know, if I don't have proper communication to be able to communicate to my buyers, my clients, it's a big problem for me. If I don't have electricity to provide cooling system for my produce, it's a big problem for me. So this kind of critical infrastructure, we are laying a foundation for a growth, a stable growth, you know, a dependable growth, and then we will lift up from there.
But
so if you're talking about these things, you come up with your program. But for us, we are talking about, in our manifesto, we are talking about how to build on this. We are not talking about going back. We are talking about the foundation that we have, because seeing is believing. You are talking about perception. This is reality. We are doing something on it.
So when it comes to now, you've mentioned agriculture and what we can do. So how would UDP, for instance, improve, as it were, productivity in agriculture?
Yes, I think for a UDP government, it's not looking at any sector as, you know, it's an island of its own when you're doing development. You see, he mentioned here about infrastructure. Nobody is against infrastructure. I don't think anybody in the opposition is against. That's our tax money. Why should we thank you for our tax money? I mean, anybody is against it. Yeah. But you see, the general framework of managing the economy, he talks about investors. So, and you have to now think about what is the basic criteria that you need to attract investors into your country. Number one, you have to deal with corruption. Investors are not just attracted with subsidies, they are attracted whether you have a transparent government and whether you have tackled corruption, because it is going to affect the value of their investment. So the general management of the economy as a whole is what is important if you are talking about upgrading standards of living. And their general management, as for the NPP, has been generally poor. And there are several examples. Last week we talked about the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, where inefficiency is manifested and you cannot separate it from the general performance of the economy. NAWEC makes loss of, in the previous year, almost $848 million. Almost $1 billion of loss. And you know where that is manifested? When the Minister of Finance came to the Parliament to ask for $662 million extra supplementary budget just to take care of NAWEC emergency expenses. So we tell you that the borough government, right, we are actually making us pay for darkness.
But Mr. Kuram, I still do not know how you're going to improve productivity in
I'm
agriculture.
I am coming. That's what I said. That is what I'm trying. You see, whenever certainly we are paying for darkness. We are in NAWEC. This figures tells you we Gambians are paying for darkness. The Gambia has one of the highest cost of electricity in the sub-region. $8 to $12 per kilowatts per hour. Now, I tell you how all this is linked to the general economic policy that the UDP is going to bring. Inefficiency is the core of my argument. Corruption is the core of my argument. Mismanagement of the economy is the core of my argument. And the specifics can be found in the SOEs. So when I show you NAWEC, I say we are paying for darkness. I don't mean the cash power we're paying. No. Whatever loan NAWEC takes, whatever loss NAWEC makes, the taxpayer pays for it. And so we are paying for billions for NAWEC, and we are still in darkness. I am coming. I came with my phone to charge it. So we're paying for darkness. So you ask me, what would a UDP government do? And I tell you,
Agricultural productivity.
agriculture. Yes, that's what I'm telling you. You see, when your money is tight, now it becomes a black hole sucking your money. You don't have any money to invest in agriculture. And how do you stop that black hole? You have to plug the holes. You have to stop corruption. You have to prioritize your expenditure. What they're doing now, they're borrowing massively. And when they borrow, you know, they don't put the money into the productive sector. The UDP government can borrow, but when it borrows, the money must go to the productive sector. Because when I mean a productive sector, you must invest. Look at what they're spending on vehicles, for example, and then look at what the farmers need. The farmers just need a chicken change to upgrade the production of this country. I come from a farming community. He mentioned Nyamina. My family still produces rice. They still go to the rice farms. One of the few remaining families and communities in the country that still make ricing. You found them in Nyamina and then in the Nyanijas and also in the Fuladus. Now, tell me what problems they are facing. They are only able to cultivate less than 10% of the land that we had. You know why? Because of lack of investment. So this government is putting money into black holes, into fancy investments, instead of putting money into those sectors like agriculture, extra investment, so that we can have all year round farming. We will have all year round farming in a UDP government, all year round farming by investment. Right now, we only depend on rain.
Isn't that
3
easier
months in a
said
year.
than done? How would you get all your farming?
How
would you do it?
We will invest into the farming. I am telling
doing
you that
exactly what? Is having the money is one thing, but how do you spend it? What is the blueprint? How many times have we invested in areas and we waste all the money because of the model we have? Is it working? What's your model? Where would you spend it?
That's why I said when you are spending money and it is leaking, there will be nothing you can get out of it. Wherever NPP is spending money, it's leaking. So that's why I start my premise by saying that a UDP government will make sure that investments, where money is investment, is not leaking. That we have to plug the hole.
Right.
We deal with corruption.
All right.
You don't want
So,
NPP
gentlemen,
don't want to talk
granted,
about corruption.
We'll talk
about
it. Seems,
talk about what you're doing with corruption.
Okay, all right, gentlemen, come in. It seems as if they're saying, well, block, as it were, the leakages, and the rest will solve itself.
Yeah, I mean, Kurang just mentioned the issue of borrowing. I mean, we know in this year's budget, like I said earlier on, I mean, government is spending $13 billion for debt servicing. And certainly the issue of spending is something that government will say, yes, I mean, we are trying as much as possible to cut, I mean, government spending. But also, like you said, I mean, there was this promise of having vehicle policy. No one knows where that policy is now. I mean, what government is spending on fuel is something that the people in the opposition will say, okay, the government is spending so much on buying vehicles, I mean, fuel and all that. Sometimes I wonder, I mean, what do we do with all these vehicles, I mean, in government? For example, right now, one will say, okay, the president is on tour. I mean, how many vehicles are on this tour? I mean, most of the people who have been allocated vehicles to go on this tour, what is their role on this tour? What are they doing there? Isn't that all, I mean, wastage? I mean, that's agreement that some people are bringing in. And then government will tell, okay, yeah, gas will be there. I mean, they are very important and all those things. But I believe, I mean, we still have a long way to go. We still need to do more in terms of cutting costs. I mean, sometimes you close from work, you see government vehicles after working hours, you begin to wonder what are they doing in town. So, I mean, if we have a vehicle policy, we'll be able to address all this and we can save millions of dollars just, implementing a good vehicle policy. I think, what we... Yes, to be honest with you, I think government is spending so much in terms of, fueling and vehicles, and I believe...
Do you know the amount of money they are spending on vehicle and vehicle?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
You have no idea.
I have no idea, but I know it's quite a lot of money that they are spending on vehicles. Yes, it's true. Government need these vehicles to be able to operate effectively because because I know there are certain ministries that will still complain that, you know, they don't have adequate vehicles. But it's about how do we use these vehicles? That's a concern for me.
Exactly.
I mean, with a proper vehicle policy,
see.
I mean, you have no business, I mean, driving a government vehicle after working hours. You have no business driving a vehicle, a government vehicle for your personal business, going to the provinces during weekends. So, I mean, if you were buying that fuel from your own pocket, you would definitely manage it well. But because of this government property, you don't care. I mean, you have fuel at your disposal, you spend it anyhow. But sometimes these are some of the challenges that we face as far as the government is concerned.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, they will say, yes, they are doing a lot. But to be honest, I mean, when you look at the way government is spending, I think, you know, we still need to do more as far as, I mean, the issue of vehicle and fuel is concerned.
Okay.
That's my concern.
I think I understand what you are saying. What you are saying, I cannot disagree with totally. But it's kind of myopic when you look at the bigger picture. It's very small. You remember when Yahya Jammeh and them came in? They thought vehicle misuse was the biggest thing. They were going to offices, knocking on doors, and parking vehicles. Excuse me.
Just wait. You'll get your chance.
My friend,
You'll get your chance.
He came here. He
You'll get your
came
chance.
here with no alternative. He doesn't have a program. Can you listen to me? Plumb the holes. I'll get there.
You'll have your turn.
What I'm trying to tell you is most of these beautiful vehicles that you are seeing, they are from OIC. OIC, you know, because of the OIC program, they bought a lot of vehicles.
Free.
But listen, they are not free, but they are not from the government coffers. I can tell you that.
From where?
Can we listen
Can
to
we
the
listen?
Ministry
No.
Ministry of Finance.
For democracy, listen.
No, wait, let's be more orderly.
For democracies to thrive, we have to be civil.
They are not
We
from
have
the
to be able
government.
to listen to each
Exactly.
other.
Okay, let's
We
listen,
have
let's
to
listen.
listen to different opinions. You came up with something, and then you have to listen to me for me to respond to you. This vehicle thing is myopic when you look at the big picture. When he talked about agriculture, what we are bringing on agriculture, if you look at agriculture, because we are a small country, we don't have any other way of, you know, except for taxes. You know, you look at healthcare, you look at agriculture, you look at, you know, education, you look at so many different sectors, you know, how to run the government effectively. If you look at, you know, the, how do you call it, on the agriculture, 90% of the money that we are using in agriculture is the projects. The Gambia government come up with only about 10% because we have support from donor agencies. And this is as good as its implementation. There are good ideas. If you look at what Giraffe did the last year, or the last few years.
So you justify
no, listen. What I'm not justifying. I'm just trying to tell you. You don't come here with programs, so you have to listen to me if you want this to be beautiful. You have to listen to me. So if you look at it, they are going into youth programs because we have to empower youth. But the problem is, I tell people, corruption in Gambia, you know, corruption is not only something that you can fight like Yahya Jammeh did. You hear something, before you listen to, before anything, you jump on the person. What we have is...
What happened to the anti-corruption bill?
No, the anti-corruption bill
No. Don't allow him to divert. Continue on your train of thought, please.
This guy.
But really, you've made your point. It's quite clear. Said Martin, this is interesting here. Earlier on, Ali was talking about how we see government officials and the way they sort of use government resources and the like. This perception of what government is doing, how much they're spending, corruption. You've got data there, haven't we? Never mind what Mr. Kale has said, that this is the reality. But what do we know?
I want to get into
so that's it.
Of course,
perceptions of spending and...
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done any on perception of spending, but general corruption, of course, people believe that it's increasing. I mean, that's part of it in terms of the perception. But of course, for me, when people talk about this issue of vehicles, all of those issues, I mean, I don't get it. I mean, for me, usually people are saying we shouldn't invest in governance. That's when you talk about mobility. The issue of mobility, vehicles is also about that. Of course, I can understand when it comes to, you know, the example that you talk about, using it weekend. But in every governance situation, you need mobility. You need to meet your people. You need to be on the ground. And that's why I was really, you know, I was not having it when we were talking about the National Assembly vehicle. I said, what? They shouldn't get vehicles? I mean, because sometimes I feel the debate is so much into the water bottle, the cars, but for me that's not supposed to be what the political party should be discussing. I mean, in terms of the economy, I want to hear what do they prefer? Do they prefer more taxation, less taxation? You know, all of those issues. That's the debate that politicians should be having. And like the vehicle, there must be vehicle. Whatever government comes, there must be vehicle. UDP will come, there will be any other one that will come, there will be those issues. But for me, at the end of the day, is what is the people, what the population are getting back? That also should be the conversation that we must have. But generally, in terms of the you know, of course, the Quran was talking about also. He likes to give a timeline, and I think that's very also important in any debate. And I looking at some of the details that we have in terms of managing the economy in 2018. You know, we saw that there was a huge euphoria. You know, people were really okay. Like if you ask them about managing the economy, they were rating the government like 63%, living standards of the poor. People were, you know, government was rated around 50%, creating jobs 45%. But all of these things, they came down in 2024. Managing the economy now, government is rated at 16%. Because of course, this is where it's no longer about the GDP and all of those things. It's about the everyday things that people are getting into, you know, and of course at some point it is changing. It's picking up. In 2023, when you compare that to 2024, which was the last year, 2023 was 14% and 2024 is 16%. So it means at least there has been 2 percentage point increase. It seems government is doing something. But what is that government doing within that point? But the living standard of the poor, I think that's also where the major issue we need to start focusing. He talked about the 148,000 people. For me, I want to hear political parties telling me how are they going to tackle those 148,000 people.
You see, I need to come in
Before
now
you come back,
because
you'll come back.
you see, the reason why people talk about the vehicle policy, you know, it's in terms of the amount of expenditure that goes into these vehicles and the types of vehicles that they have, right? We see the president. I stood, let me tell you how much. I stood on the highway and I counted Barros' entourage just from here to the airport, and I counted 60 vehicles and all of them are SUV. That's a number for you. Now, so what is wrong with that?
I think it
what
was
is
a
wrong with that
monetary
is that the
number,
the fuel that they consume, these vehicles are gulping, the fuel gulping vehicles. You understand what I mean? So when we talk about this, one reason is because we tend to ask a question. How many tractors and power tillers are there? In the 1970s, you go to every village in CRR, there are 5 tractors and power tillers and 20 power tillers. Almost every family has a power tiller in 1970 something. We're supposed to go to the next level. Now he came and said, oh, standard of living is good because rice is this. No, we are talking about this. Give us the statistics before Barrow came to power in 2016 and the statistics that is existing today. The Dalasi is number one. The Dalasi has devaluated, right? Lost its value, 50% of its value from when Barrow came to power. The Dalasi was about in the 40s. Today, it is in the 70s. Almost 100% drop in what is happening. So when we said
What's the reason for that? What's the reason for that?
The reason,
why did that happen?
Poor management of the economy. Look at the central bank. Specifically, I give you another example. Because I know he will tell me an example. the president's nephew is on record that he has received. He's one of the people, a business who just became a businessman. You understand? I'm a politician, I gotta say. Amadou Sane is the president's nephew. He just got to be a businessman. He got almost $1 billion from foreign exchange reserves in the central bank. Now, we economists talk about efficient allocation of resources. If you have resources, and what did the Barrow government say? They said, we want to control prices in the economy.
But when you say on record, where exactly does it say that? Is it in the papers? Where do we know that this is what he said?
No, you see,
allegation.
no. no.
what
They
you
came.
say.
The Bua Saidi came out and stated the amount of millions of dollars that they gave to certain businessmen.
That's it.
And we have no,
Do we know for what reason? Was it because of the president's nephew, or there are other reasons why it was given that?
well, you see, we in politics and in law, once you are in public office, there is what is called conflicts of interest. If you have a family member of your family who have no business record before you came to power, and then he is given huge loans, and you said those loans are for reducing prices in the economy in order to eliminate poverty, then there are questions. I leave the public, the listeners, to answer those questions so that I can move to something very important. The UDP has a master plan.
You can come
no,
back.
you keep saying we have a master plan. We have a master plan. Let me tell you. No, I'm telling you. I need to say this point. I'm telling you that in this country, the problem we have is the youth who are supposed to build the country. There is no job for them.
We'll come to
I'm
youth
coming to
employment
the.
very,
So
very
I shouldn't
soon.
say our plan.
We'll
Okay.
deal with next. We'll deal with youth employment and that sort of thing.
No, because I'm going to link
your
it up
response.
to solving problems.
So hold the thought
Yeah.
and link it when we get
Okay,
to that
I'll hold
one.
it here.
He doesn't have any statistics to back. He doesn't have a plan. They don't have a plan. Talk is cheap. But we are doing things. When it comes to corruption, let me tell you that Amadou Sane's loan doesn't come from the government. It's a private bank that gave him the money. It's the private bank, but that's I'm not going to rebut everything. Exactly. Let me tell you this.
It's a tax
Can you
funded
allow
bank.
me to?
We're talking about national issues.
When you talk about
Where did it come
corruption,
from?
when you talk about Kukoi Samba Sanyang came here and said corruption.
You're going 1981.
Yaya Jammeh came and said corruption. You understand? Corruption, I tell Gambians, if you go to any advanced country, there will be pointing corruption here. It's part of human nature, but that doesn't excuse it. The problem here is what goes on in our households in Gambia, what goes on in our villages, what goes on in our personal lives. That is what is manifesting in the government. There are no angels there. There are Gambians there.
No excuse
the way
for
to
that.
fight
That's not
corruption.
an
Let me
excuse.
tell you. Let me finish my thought process.
The man swore to
The way to fight corruption, we have to be
He
serious.
swore to Quran.
No, Mr. Quran.
You gotta give me.
Go on.
We have to be serious. To fight corruption is not only picking up people and putting them in jail. There are so many. There is technology. And I think we are making a progress in this. Like government services now, if you want to get your passport, you go to the bank and pay the money. Try to, stop people from having access to where they do corruption. And secondly, most important thing, you don't fight it in one day. You start with the schools, you start with society. We have to sensitize. That's why we have the Anti-Corruption Commission. And they have already selected people. And this is what we all have to be serious. Let me tell you this.
I think you've made your point. You've made your point clearly.
Very effectively.
That's it. Why don't you come in, gentlemen?
Good. So I want each of them to address. Yes. No. I want each of them to address an aspect of what I'm going to say. Now, for Sedmati, I think the debate about government purchasing of vehicles or procurement of vehicles is not about the issue of enhancing governance. It's about drawing a line between necessity and luxury. Okay. So in a situation where a vehicle is purchased for $4 million, should you not purchase a vehicle of $2 million, for example, or $1 million that is efficient enough to be able to carry out that particular function that you were talking about in terms of governance? That's what they're saying. Instead of National Assembly members acquiring a $3 million vehicle, how about a $1 million vehicle, for example?
Or $200,000 vehicle.
Yeah. So they're trying to draw a line between necessity and luxury. And also, you have to understand that these vehicles, sustaining these vehicles is also very expensive, and this comes from public covers as well. So that is why the debate of that comes in. It is a very relevant debate, and we should not disregard it.
I mean, it's not. I'm bringing that debate back because I participated in that debate.
Yes.
And my position was that I was defending the vehicles of the National Assembly members.
Yes. So
and that's my position. And
so that's what I'm saying. Now, the debate there is about drawing a line between necessity and luxury.
And for me, the question is, what is luxury?
Now,
what luxury? What becomes luxury? You see, in this country,
it's a value judgment.
Yeah, it's a value judgment.
Yes.
And I see that a lot in this country. People that are working in government, you expect them to be poor because that's what you are civil. No, let me see, because these are things that I engage with, a conversation that I hear. I'm not talking about this vehicle anymore, but I'm talking about generally. What is the expected of a civil servant? Like I'm talking to the society. Yeah. If you're working in a position, the expectation is like you must be poor because it's a government service that you are providing. No. I mean, that's the perception that many people have. That if you're in last time I was in this debate on Facebook, I mean, and I was saying that they said you in government you shouldn't be paid well.
No, if you're in government, you should
because
not,
you're talking about
be
Prado,
poor.
you're using that as a luxury.
No, you should not be poor. You should be remunerated for the service you provide.
Gentlemen, that's a detail that we really cannot resolve today because let's move on to something very important as well.
I'm moving. So the line there is necessity and luxury. I'm moving to Mr. Kuram. Sorry. Okay, I'm moving to Mr. Kuram. Mr. Kuram, you said you're going to block the holes. Okay, block the holes, the leakages that are happening. That's what you're going to block. But you did not sufficiently explain where how you're going to spend that money to enhance agricultural productivity when you block the hole. And I think you owe our viewers that explanation so that they understand how a UDP government would utilize public funds to enhance productivity in agriculture. So you need that to do that explanation. And for Mr. Kale, I think we are talking about value in agriculture. And the last time we had the Minister of Finance speak, government had borrowed up to 27 million to invest in the rice value chain. And equally, the government had borrowed up to 28 million to invest in small ruminant production. What happened to those projects?
So you asked a question. You said if to plug the holes is not enough, it's about where to invest that extra money. And then I have said that there are priority sectors, and it's not just about throwing money, into the agricultural sector, but it's about looking at the overall picture and then see how to increase agricultural productivity at higher levels than it had ever been. And then to do that, obviously, we know what is lacking at the moment. The lack of, the reason why we are not cultivating almost 80% of the cultivable land in this country is because of equipment. There is a lack of equipment, and there is a lack of technology. When I say technology, I mean the know-how. So you have to also, apart from investing in machinery, plant and machinery and etc., you have to be able to create the workforce, that know-how that is able to cultivate the land that is at stake. And that's where I was talking about youth employment. Because you see, most of the reasons for the rural-urban migration is because poor youths in the rural areas do not see farming as a value-added activity, right? It is just like extra hand, and it is still a question of, well, even if I do it, even if I stay in the farm, I will still remain poor. Now, that cycle of thought, that logic must be broken. And to break that logic, it's not just about investing in agriculture. It's not just about training the people to take care of the investment. It's also about further processing that we talked about last week or so, when we said that when you produce the agricultural product, there is no value added at the moment. There is the need for a complete refurbishment or a complete, revolution in value-added production.
Do you have the blueprint for that?
Yes, we have the blueprint for that.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to come to your question.
No, you've made your point.
I'm going to come to your question. But what he's talking about value-added, that's what we are doing. You cannot do value-added without having access to electricity. You cannot have value added when you don't have access to roads, transportation,
and
your goods.
electricity is going
Excuse me. So we are about 95% of Gambia is benefiting from the electricity expansion program across the country. We have that. Roads are being built. You talk about rice value chain.
Yeah.
You see some of the roads being built, the president inaugurating them, is part of that value chain. You know what value chain is? Value chain is connecting services. For example, if I'm a chicken farmer, I don't have to grow up my chicks and my chicken, slaughter it, and be able to sell it to the market. What I do is I spread this, because I can have a farmer, contract a farmer, 1, 2, 3. Somebody is providing the hatchery. Then I take the chicks and take it to the farmer. The farmer will raise it, make sure that in 1 month, somebody else will be providing feed. That feed will be supplied to the farmer. And the farmer's job is just to raise the chicken. And after that, a transporter will come and collect. When they collect, they deliver to my slaughterhouse. All I have to do is the process, and then it goes outside. This is the value chain they are trying. You see, if you have a country like Gambia, struggling as we are, we have to count our blessings one by one. We have to take steps to that. And this is the vision the rice value chain is providing. If you go across, I'm a rice farmer myself. I'm not talking about chicken stuff here. I'm a rice farmer. I'm a farmer. The difference is here. I'm telling you tangible and concrete.
There's a fallacy with his argument. There's a fallacy with his argument, because he started by saying you cannot have any one of these activities so long as electricity is not there. And their government has completely failed to bring down the cost of electricity, and 2, even expensive electricity is not available.
But the electrification,
we pay for darkness.
The electrification has been expanded.
You building poles and running wires. That does not.
Let's move on to something else. No.
I'm telling you, it's
because
still
you mentioned youth employment or
Yes.
youth unemployment. Now let's go
So
there.
that's
straight
where
away.
I am coming.
Youth unemployment, you will have your chance.
Yes, yes.
And what they call youth not in employment,
Yeah.
education or training NEET
Yes.
sits at over 40%. That's very interesting. But we also get that the official sort of unemployment rate is what? 6.5%.
Yeah.
How do these two figures sort of
You know,
sit together?
the problem with the youth is more serious than the government, looking at the government alone. We have this backway syndrome, and that didn't start just now. It's been going on. And the problem is no. Can you listen?
Go on.
Can you listen, please? And this is a huge problem in this country. People feel like, they have to go out to be able to get something back. They have to invest in themselves. So what this value chain, the small ruminant programs are doing, they are focused entirely on youth and women. Try to help them into horticultural gardening, in terms of transportation, in terms of... in my area, there's a training camp called in Charmin. Every year, they graduate about almost over 100 people. And I have employed some of these people. You see, in this sector, investors have to come in. The government, there is no way in this world the government can do all. What the government has to do is to lay the foundation, lay the groundwork so that it can attract more people. I lived in outside of this country for over 30 years, and I worked in many African countries, especially Southern Africa. I spent a lot of time there. The problem is the government have to just lay the foundation for us to attract. You can blame the government all you want, but there has to be realistic, investment in the certain sectors. The government cannot have a farm. They cannot have. We have seen that with communism and socialism. It failed. Okay. So we are capitalistic society.
Okay.
Whereby
so you are laying the foundation to create for job creation.
That's evidence.
So we haven't got it yet.
That's evidence. No. It's coming. It's here. It's here, Mr.
But
Boyd.
you are investing. We haven't
Yeah,
seen
we
the
are
outcome
invest-
yet.
It's coming.
What's
It's-
it? Okay.
the
Have you got
outcome-
any measurable?
But well, this is what our statistical guy is telling you.
No.
He's in illusion, but
Well-
statistics is reality.
Well, he's giving us perceptions,
Mr.
people's
Seth Martin is
perceptions,
giving
and
you-
his
he's giving
reality.
you-
This is
he's giving you
different.
living standards. Is
So, what is your theory for job creation?
You see, the youth of any country is supposed to be an economic asset. But the Barrow government, it has become a demographic crisis. Now, why do I say that? He said the back way. The back way. That's what is the case. The back way. The back way existed
You
long
are
time.
not telling me your own theory.
Yes,
Job
I have to
creation.
diagnose the current situation for me to give you a suggestion. That's why I start by telling you
Okay,
that
doctor.
it's an economic asset, and how an asset is supposed to be exploited in order to bring benefits.
No
So when you don't see it,
programs.
when you don't see it as an economic asset, we see youth as an economic asset, and that is why I said the first thing that you have to do with the youth. There is this program that has already appeared in the UDP manifesto that there needs to be a national, what we call a national youth program. Right? In Singapore, they call it, how do I call it? When you finish school, everybody who finishes school goes to some kind of service.
In Nigeria,
Yes.
NYSS.
So this is very important. You cannot revolutionize this country. You go to the beach side on Sunday, right? And the youths are just free. They have nothing to do. What we want to do, when they finish grade 12, I'm giving you a blueprint. When they finish grade 12, you got to put them into something that is government controlled and coordinated. What the Singaporeans, the Bruneians, and even the Americans at some point in time, the Russians and all the countries that matter in this world do, is that you take these young people into a national service program. When they finish, everybody joins the national service program. It is only in the national service program that you can manage, coordinate, and control 500,000 young people and direct their energy, mark the word. Right now, when you go to the army camp, you know what they do? They sit from morning to evening, right? And then make present and absent and then go home. They don't do anything. Singapore uses the army to build bridges. They use the army to build the roads. They use the army to even fly the planes. I'm telling you the UDP blueprint. You asked for
You
a
will do
blueprint.
that. Yes,
So listen
but
to it.
you have to
That is what
summarize,
we're gonna
though.
bring to
We
this
don't have
country.
infinite time.
That is what we're going to bring
Time
to
is
this
a resource.
country.
You are an economist. You should know that.
You know what? Now the blueprint comes. You know what I said?
You've told us. You've given us the gist of your
I'll just
argument.
give you executive summary.
Said Mati, youth unemployment. What are we getting there? What do the statistics tell us about what youth are thinking? What they think the government should do? What do we have?
I wouldn't do, because the GBOS is the best to go to for that. But of course, we usually ask in our surveys what are the most important problems that people want government to address. And I think since 2018 we've been asking this. And then you can, see people listing health, cost of living, crime and security, water supply, education, roads, electricity, unemployment. So unemployment has been an issue or problem that the citizens want government to address. But if you compare 2018 to 2024, especially for the top five problems that people wanted government to address, in 2018, it was health, water supply, unemployment, electricity, and food shortage. In 2024, health still maintains. Health is on the agenda. Cost of living now is on the agenda for the first time. Cost of living, crime and security, and then you have water supply and education.
For the first
so,
time.
so if you compare this list, then you can see unemployment that was number 3, in 2018. Is not on the list for in 2024. Electricity, which was also number 4, is not on the list for 2024 in terms of the top 5. And what this is telling you is either there has been some improvement or otherwise. But the interesting point for me is the which one again? Issues around infrastructure, cost of living, because these are things that also people want government to address. So, but for unemployment in 2018, it was 28%. 2021 19, then you have 2023 15%, and now it's still 15% as top of the priority for people to look at that. So you can see that, I mean, it's still part of a top issue that people want to address, and that's why it's very important for us to hear from the political parties how are they going to address this issue. I mean, he talked about NYSS. We already have an NYSS.
No, I didn't say NYSS. It's completely different.
No,
NYSS.
no, let me finish. I know what you say.
Yeah,
I know what
because
you
I'm
talk about.
clarifying.
Okay, all right.
I know what you talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, you talk about a youth scheme, youth service scheme. It happens in Nigeria, in Ghana,
national service.
national service scheme.
Singapore.
So the agenda of the NYSS is the same.
No.
Go read the constitution. I'm just let me finish.
That's a different detail.
I'm helping you because you want to set up. You want to set up. I'm telling you, based on the 1997 constitution, you can use the current NYSS to do exactly what you want to do.
Okay.
Because that is the room that has been created for those kind of stuff. It's about building the capacity of young people, and I feel like what you are saying is it can be done.
No, I'm talking about how it is implemented right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Cannot solve the problem.
Of course, I agree
That's
with
what
that.
I mean.
So it's going to
You
change.
know that. You
So-
don't know that.
I agree with that.
All right.
So what
Thank
I'm
you.
saying,
Thank
what
you.
I mean
No,
is also what
no.
he's
You will
saying.
come back. You'll come back. You'll come back.
I
So,
didn't finish
gentlemen,
what I wanted to say,
No,
in fact.
gentlemen. Now we really going sort of coming towards the end. Really, we don't have that much time.
Yeah.
So now looking forward.
Yes.
Really. So, what would be the biggest, as it were, economic issues? Really, we know about cost of living and that sort of thing. So, how do we see the economy shaping people's choices at the ballot box?
It's obvious that when people think about their choices, they will think about how the government of the day probably impacts their lives. They could think about that. But it's unfortunate that in Gambia, people don't vote based on issues. People vote on other denominators than just the economy or the security or cost of living or whatsoever we are discussing here. So probably I'm likely to vote for UDP because my family is UDP, or I'm likely to vote for NPP because my family is NPP. That is what determines some of our choices. Yes. So in order for us to critically think, and then vote based on issues, I think we need certain platforms like this to ensure that we scrutinize the programs that politicians have for our country, and also educate the voters to say, when you go to the ballot, you are voting, you are making a choice that should impact your life, not a choice that could add value to the next person's life, and then while you continue struggling. But what I wanted to say quickly about what they're saying, I think there was a very good program at the Gambia College. Because the government directly employs thousands of young people into the teaching system.
So it doesn't exist anymore?
No. It doesn't.
That's a different point.
It doesn't exist anymore. So that could have been in place.
Okay.
And on a final note, I think also now to address, we need to thank the government of President Barrow in a certain way, because the massive infrastructural development it has embarked on, certainly, I said it last week, contribute to the booming construction industry. And if you see the latest data from GBOS, construction contributes to a higher significant number in terms of providing employment for young people. Although they put a question mark to say it is highly characterized by informality and unpredictability. But there is a rise in construction activities, and that in turn also provide employment for young people.
That's
so
it.
we need
Now,
to
I'll quickly.
Yes.
At some point, I was off the
economic-
program. But it's good
No, it's all right.
so, that's a good. I mean,
The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. I mean, let me just start with the youth unemployment. I will still go back to the governance, as you just said, Martin Manson, because I have some point that I really need to make very clear. The issue of youth unemployment. Yes, the government will say, okay, we're spending much in providing skills for young people. We are giving out, grants to young people to invest in certain productive sectors. But for me, it's one thing to have young people get these skills, but how much is the government also supporting them? For example, if you go to most of our offices, all the furniture in those offices are imported from outside of the country. And we have young people who have the skills, who are carpenters. Why can't you give them this contract? Why can't you give them the contract? And then the other thing also, many people are leaving the country not because they don't have skills, maybe because of peer influence. Some people are here, they have their skills, they are getting something. Maybe they just feel maybe if they travel, they might get better things there than in the country. And in the event, I mean, most of them, they lose their lives. Coming back to the issue of, I mean, expenditure. I mean, Seth Martin mentioned about the issue of, you know, governance and vehicles and all that. The point I was trying to make here is that why will someone who is perhaps a director or a minister be allocated two vehicles, your official vehicle and utility vehicle? For what reason? Is that also part of governance, Seth Martin? Let me understand. And away from that, even if when you look at the budget, you see government, sometimes they come with a budget, you see a particular institution requesting furniture every year. And you begin to wonder what happens to the furniture that you requested last year. I have witnessed, because I have covered parliament, I have covered budget proceedings. I have witnessed where parliamentarians have to kick out certain budget allocation regarding furniture because they feel it's unnecessary. So for me, the issue of, I mean, vehicle policy is something that the government must put in place. Because with the proper vehicle policy implemented to the fullest, definitely government can save millions of dollars, to be honest with you, which can be diverted into other sectors, not just agriculture, but even health. And also the issue of education as well. We're talking about young people and skills and all that. I think we should also review our curriculum. I mean, young people should go more into skills. It's very important. Absolutely. Definitely.
Okay. So just before you gentlemen, before you come in, you made an, to my mind, empirical statement there. Yeah. So you mean people don't vote based on issues? Have you done any, have you done, what have you done? What surveys have you done there? What do we have?
I mean, I wish I have money to do some national election studies.
Okay,
I mean, to measure from the past all till now, the voting behavior of people. I mean, I think, you know, we are very new. Political science, basically, I mean, in terms of understanding our politics here is pretty new. But these are kind of debates that you hear. Some people vote based on what the family, you know, head or everybody said. People vote on that. But there are other people that vote based on their own personal choices. And for me, what I'm seeing now is more, even within family, you're seeing this divergence. You know, like we know that the family, the figurehead is die-hard this, but you have the kids that belong to one or two different, I mean, political parties. So you're seeing those issues. But in terms of the issue, I think for me, yes, there's a gap in terms of that. But people, even though they're focusing on individuals, they must be listening to the political leaders to hear what they want to say. For me, what I'm also sensing is that there's a gap between the manifestos. You know, they talk about their plans, their manifestos, what they talk about in their manifestos, and what they say when it comes to their rallies that people have to hear. And so those are things that people must be, but at the end of the day, it is choice, but that people have to make. So they have to be the ones to understand what parties are saying.
I've heard that with politicians, the first thing they abandon is their manifestos
of
when
course.
they win, when they get into power, because of the realities of power. Now, we've come to the end, really. I'll begin with you.
Yeah.
Make your closing case for NPP's economic record before Mr. Kurang can come on. 1 minute, please.
Yeah, I think we kind of deviated a little bit from the economics, but what I will tell people is we have to be serious about our political debates in this country because one Frantz Fanon is a psychoanalyst and an author. He said, show me a good, well-run political party and I'll show you how a good government looks like. And I think, you know, if you look at the plurality of the political parties in this country, you know your choice is very clear. In terms of economics, I think, you know, for any country, you know, if you look at the West, they embark on major infrastructure projects to be able to have a foundation. Without a foundation, there'll be no good, economy. We have to be serious about that, and we are embarking on that. To Caesar's point, we want to indigenize some of these things like road building. Now they are given to Gambians. But you know, sometimes these roads, people start criticizing. But we have to, you know, if you go to, for example, Malaysia in the 80s, they call it Bumiputra, son of the soil. We have to give this to, you know, some of these short roads to people, and it encourages, it impacts unemployment. So if we do that, you are criticized here. But what I'm trying to tell people is, if you look at electricity, if you look at water, if you look at transport, roads, you know, we are laying the best foundation you have ever seen in the past 60 years. And this is going to be our legacy. We are not only talking about it in our manifesto, but we are actually building on it. It is here. You talk about seeing is perception is reality. This is not perception. It's seeing is believing. And
Mr. Kurang, your reply and your pitch.
Yes. They talk about global shocks to be blamed. And we see Senegal is investing and boosting agriculture next door. Maybe they should go there for some lessons. 2, employment. We have a saying in economics that concrete does not grow an economy. An economy is grown with skilled labor. So they should look at the youth while they are dying in the sea. Maybe that's something that the UDP government takes seriously, and I'm talking about the National Youth Service, right? And he said, I agree with him on that in principle and policy, but what I disagree with is the manner in which it is being implemented. That's not, I'm looking at the Singapore model as a, similar population to the Gambia, lack of natural resources. It can work if the government is serious about it. Their economy right now is under ransom. It's being run by the IMF. Everything they are doing, all this cut-cutting they are doing, the IMF is dictating. And do you know when the IMF dictates you is when you fail in managing economy.
So you will discontinue the programs with the IMF?
The IMF
is that what UDP will do?
The IMF comes and no, what I'm trying to tell you, we are going to put the economy on a strong foundation. We are going to manage it. When you mismanage,
without the IMF,
when you mismanage, the IMF takes control because you owe them money. So we are not going to mismanage, so the IMF is not going to control it. They can be present, but they don't control it. The currency, the Gambian dollar say, is the #1 symptom of the Barrow economic failure. The dollar has dropped almost 100% in 10 years of Barrow rule. It's inflation. Inflation, when you talk to them, they say, oh, inflation is going down. Look at housing. How much people paying for rent? How much people paying for electricity? How much people paying for transportation? How much people paying for gas and petrol from the time Barrow came up to now? So the basic question for the Gambian is simply this. The SOEs, which I gave as an example, we're paying for darkness on the NAWEC. Now, look at it. The simple question.
Give us the basic question.
The basic question
for Gambians
the basic question for Gambian is, are you better off today than in 2016 economically?
That's it, exactly. Gambians will decide.
If
that's it. You are not a party advocate. That's it. But politically, if you were to leave one thing with our viewers, what would it be from the discussions we've heard economically?
I mean, I really enjoyed the discussion. I think that it was energetic, and both sides were able to push the agenda. I mean, but for me to see exactly what differentiate these two is difficult. Because one was speaking from a position of continuity, and the other is talking about from a position of wanting reform, wanting change. But what is also missing is in terms of the philosophy. Is it like they want more government, less government? Is it more taxation, less taxation? In terms of the economy, for me, I think when it comes to differences in terms of politics and political position, those issues have to be there. I mean, like this NPP is doing subsidies. Is UDP pro subsidies, for instance? I mean, for me, those are the economic questions. Absolutely. I mean, well, of course, people will accuse us of being the intelligentsia that are interested in this kind of debate. But at the end of the day, these are the political expectations that I have. But I really enjoy it, basically.
Absolutely. I'm told that we've come to the end of the program. Thank you very much, my permanent panelists, Aliou Ceesay and Ibrahima Dabo, and on my right here, Mr. Kale.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming at the last minute of NPP. And next to you, Mamadou Kurang, thank you very much. You've been a wonderful sport. 2 weeks sort of consecutively you came. And next to you, Sid Matthew, thank you for giving us the political view.
Thank you.
And from me and the entire production team, until next week, we'll have another topic. Goodbye.